Yeah, we sippin' Henny Wakanda. Sippin' Henny Wakanda.
Salute, man.
It's the Kevin Speaks Vegeta's Pain.
And it's Dre, XO Music. You know the vibes.
And as we all know, it's a lot going on. Yo, what we talking about today, Dre?
Well, Kev, we back with another episode.
Absolutely.
Yo, once again, shout out to the Smong team. Shout out to the guys that Smong that's here supporting, here working with us today, man. And today's episode is a touchy one, and it's really called Healthy Masculine Vulnerability.
Okay.
So I'm going to say that one more time. Healthy Masculine Vulnerability. So, Kev, I'm going to jump off with the first question to you.
Talk to me.
Is it okay for a black man to cry, Kev?
Absolutely. Absolutely, it's okay for... And black men should be crying a lot more. As far as I'm concerned, we have a lot of trauma built up. So
Talk about it.
whether you've gone through the personal trauma in your own life based on the circumstances that were created by your parents and or the white supremacist structure, and or if you believe that generational trauma is embedded within our DNA and embedded within all of the things that we go through, then there are some people that say we hold on and our DNA holds on to the trauma of our ancestors. So really and truly, it depends on how deep you want to get into it. But I'd absolutely say black men, I'd say black women, right, to include them. But we talking about black men. Let's talk about black men. Yes, we absolutely deserve the space to cry.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I was going to ask another question, but I guess I'll just really delve into it.
Go ahead.
I really don't feel like there's spaces for black men to express themselves or even just be comfortable enough to cry in a way.
Why do you say that?
Because where is it? I mean, let's talk about it. Let's be real. Like, there's not a lot of places where black men could even congregate safely or comfortably. Then, if I just thought about it realistically, I might say the gym. You're not going to cry in the gym. The gym is not, I mean, you may, but you're going to do it in the locker room or, on your own time.
I feel
So, the gym, where else do black men congregate? The trap. You ain't crying in the trap.
I'd imagine
You
not.
better not be crying in the trap. Else you
hope
in the wrong sport, my boy. But okay.
So let me say this. So as you're talking, it made me think of something. Why is it anyone else's responsibility for us to have spaces to cry? Because as you were talking, because you kept asking the question, then it started beating in my head. Like, or even the statement, we don't have many spaces. But then I think about everything else we talk about when we said we didn't have platforms to speak up until recently because we said mass media was controlling our image, right? And a lot of feminist talk shows, right, that were depicting black men as problematic and toxic and not in their homes and all of these various things. So I'd ask, whose responsibility is it for us to have those spaces? Like, we've seen other groups of people, we've seen black women create spaces for themselves, create elbow room for themselves. So how would you respond to that?
Well, I would say it would probably take an OG, someone in the community that's going to create some type of support group or some type of, it usually manifests in the form of a sports team but there's no just basic support group for basically youth that maybe getting out of prison or maybe just in shelters bouncing around trying to figure them we don't have a lot of stable pillars in the community. I mean, we got 100 suits in Queens,
Absolutely.
So there are shout out to the brothers that are doing those things.
Yes.
But in terms of just focusing on mental health and allowing the black man to express himself and just really tell his story, I don't think there's a lot of spaces doing that.
To reiterate what you said, shout out to all the groups who are doing the good work. There's a lot of organizations, right, that are focusing on our young men. With that being said, it brings me back to the question of who do black men support? What do black men support? Because a lot of the times I understand as a black man, I would agree there aren't many spaces that exist. There aren't many spaces that exist already, but what are we doing about those things? How are we as the professed leaders of communities? What are we doing about that? What do we support?
I mean, I was just talking to bro earlier, and we were just having some real insightful conversations. He said a lot of podcasts popping up. Like you just said, we're creating spaces to do that for ourselves, but we're focusing more on the trivial things about society. We're just not focused in terms of building the community, in terms
That's
of
a fact.
just making sure the culture is strong. I don't think as a whole we doing a good enough job of addressing that. But we could just complain this whole episode and try to figure out why. But if we're trying to talk about how to get to spaces, to get to better opportunities, let me throw a question at you, because this now teeters the lines of vulnerability and healthy masculinity. It kind of sums it all up. So boom, a man wants to go into the nail salon and gets his nails done. Is that healthy vulnerability, comfortably expressing yourself, or is that doing too much?
That's healthy. I got my nails done the other day. Got them buff. Yeah, I think they look nice.
Okay. Salute, King. Salute. Now, I'm going to ask you a further question. Are you going to get tips and colors and designs on those nails?
So for me personally, no, right? But if you start asking about where you draw the line, I think that's an interesting question, because whilst there are things and places where I wouldn't go personally, I don't know that I can draw the line for anybody in terms of, now I can say personally that doesn't align with my perception of masculinity. What I can't do is tell another man what he can or can't do in his expression of self. So
Okay, but Kev, let's keep it a stack. If the lines of sexuality are constantly being blurred and drawn, and me and you are here trying, and other black men are trying to figure out ways to be black men, and now the lines are getting more vulnerable, how do we figure out ways to express ourselves without crossing the line or without doing too much or getting too crazy?
well, I think the first thing we have to do is ask ourselves, do we continue to constrict the notion of masculinity and try to force a bunch of different things in that? Or do we make it more flexible to incorporate the various ways that it may show up? Now, on the one hand, there are traditionalists who are like, this is what I see as masculine. And it's like, okay, that's your prerogative. But the same way that you'd want somebody to at least validate your right to feel that way is the same way that you may have to validate someone's right to feel someone somewhere else. So if you ask about how do we draw the lines of distinction, once again, we have to stand up and push our narratives. I don't know that we can just throw flags at another one or go, yo, look at the agendas, look at the this, look at the that. Well, the truth is what are we doing to make sure our children, our young people in our communities aren't being overwhelmed by the agendas per se? So that's my point. Like, I don't think we'll ever be able to stop what's happening. All we can do is stand up, and if men or black men as a whole stand up and go, this is our identity and this is the way we want to sort of lead our people, then we just start pushing our narrative.
Okay.
You feel me?
Okay. I feel that. I definitely feel that. And that definitely touched on a lot of points. So
let me ask you, in what ways have we seen celebrities push these lines of masculinity, and do you think that created an uproar or a stir of any sort?
I mean, we've seen it over the years, Kev. I feel like it's been intrinsically implanted in movies and in TV. For example, the man playing a woman. You got the Shanae's, you got the Tyler Perry's, just to name a few. And that, just seeing a black man play a woman, it's funny. You could look at it and say, that's funny, that's cool. Shanae was funny. Did he have to play his mama, though? Did Steve Urkel have to play his cousin, though? You see what I'm saying? So how many times you got to see it to be like, all right, someone is trying to make me see this. And I'm not saying it's not okay, but you don't got to keep putting it in the mouth. You see what I'm saying?
So let me play God's advocate. So as black people, we're always talking about representation, right? Being able to see ourselves. Like, New York City is a diverse community. Our politicians should be diverse to represent that, right? So could one not say on TV, should it not be reflective of the diversity of our community? So if trans people exist, if gay people exist, if lesbian people exist, then can they not argue that they should be represented in their mediums of media? Now, that's to separate from my personal thoughts. But like I said, to play God's advocate, can one not make that same argument in the way of representation?
Yes, they can definitely make that argument. But then I can say, well, there's a certain line where now you're just putting this in my face blatantly, or there's a certain agenda that's you're trying to force a narrative. For example, you know, we could say for years, well, once we started seeing black actors on TV, you know, white people got mad. White people got mad. Like, if you see a black character consistently, especially in a racist time, you could consistently get mad seeing black characters popping up. There's a line where it's just, okay, an agenda is being forced. Now, at the same time, no disrespect to trans people, no disrespect into the alphabet community. I respect y'all. If there's being a character in every child show, children's shows, I'm just not gonna go to at regular day-to-day TV. If in children's shows, I'm constantly seeing characters that are pushing the lines of sexuality when children shouldn't even be that open to sexuality at that age, then I might derive myself that this is something that I'm being forced to watch, or my child is being forced to watch.
So okay, to once again plays God advocate. Can one say, so a child in these shows, children are being exposed to sexuality of some sort. In many of these shows, there was someone had a boyfriend, someone had a girlfriend. There has always been heterosexual dynamics in shows of all sorts. So then now the same dynamic of children shouldn't be exposed to sexuality, yet regularly they're exposed to heterosexuality. Not to say that anything else should be pushed in their face, but to say, but you see what I'm saying? So someone could now, on the flip side, sexuality is littered in and throughout our community.
This is how I'm gonna jump on the flip side. It's not directly addressing that analogy, but it kind of isn't. So follow me for a second.
I'm with you.
What I just talked about was seeing black actors on TV. The Little Mermaid was previously black, correct? I don't think that was necessary, to be completely honest with you. Now, the thing that it did for black girls, showing black girls a positive image and someone to look forward to, or even brown girls, not necessarily just black girls. Do I think it was necessary from a movie standpoint to reinvent The Little Mermaid and make a black character? No. For as much as it did for young black girls, and as much as I respect it, you could have made a whole other movie with a black character that could have achieved the same thing. So to create all of the strife around, oh, you're changing Ariel to a black character and all that, and all the hoopla, it increased sales. It revived the Little Mermaid franchise. So from a financial standpoint, it worked, and it still did the positive impacts that it needed to do. But if you personally ask me, or if I had the directing power to if I thought it was necessary to have a black Little Mermaid at this point in time, when the Little Mermaid was already a franchise for a long time, and you know Ariel when you see her, no, I'm just be honest with you, Kev. And that's the other side of the equation. Now, you know, and I'm a black man, and I know what it does for the culture. I know what it has done for black girls, but from a business movie standpoint, I'm separating the two. Do I feel it was absolutely necessary?
So I'd say necessary becomes subjective, right? Because if you can acknowledge by your own admission that it's done a number of things for young black girls, a lot of people would have said it was necessary. Now, that's on the cultural component. Then you teased out the economic component and said all the civil strife and racial tension that was created as a result also boomed the sales. So can you not say in both aspects it was beneficial? It was more beneficial than not in both ways. So I say it was necessary, both from a business and a cultural standpoint, right? And even so, I hear what you're saying in terms of the flip side of needing to see the representation simply because it can be reflective of you. What I'm saying is that because they have the right and the logical flow of progression of thought that says yes, they could also argue that they should be represented in mass media because they also represent in and throughout society. I think it's hard to argue with that. Like I said, still taking away from the point of whether or not I think it should be in children's books, whether I think it should be in family TV shows, if on ABC at 7 o'clock on a Wednesday, if you should be trying to. So here's what I'd say. I'd say the point where I start to hear the people who are pushing back are the people who saying, now I have to explain this to my child. Now, there's a lot of people who could argue we are living in an evolving world. So you can't argue that you should have to be lazy and just go, there's boys and girls, and that's it, boom, 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 right? Because that's the flip side. Because they're going to go, you want to be willfully ignorant. But I do understand that people that are like, I'm raising my child a particular way as their parent, and you pushing this is now forcing me to contend with things that I may not be ready to even explain to them, and or however may cause stir up in my household where I get to control the narrative and not pushing that on nobody else, but saying in my household that's disrupting what I'm trying to do now.
Exactly. So tying this all back to vulnerability and how we even etch out a niche for ourselves. If our kids are growing up where they're being not necessarily forced, because you could turn the TV off, you could say, no, don't watch TV. Technically, if you don't want that in your house, you say, yo, throw out the TV. You don't want that, you allowing this to happen. But on the flip side, like, if we're trying to allow our kids spaces to grow and be vulnerable and see the world and shield them in a way that protects them but still allows them to learn and grow and express their own comfortability and vulnerability, we just trying to carve out a little spot for ourselves as black men and trying to figure out what that looks like. And with these kids growing up now, popping pills, doing all type of running around, depressed, anxiety, there's a lot of emotional, all those back-end traumas is coming out now. And with less home training, how are we gonna get that shit together?
So I'd say this. What I agree with you with is that black men, we're carving out for the first times our own image, right? Our own sense of self and our depictions of what we want of ourselves in mass media. What I will also say is, what are we doing as a whole? Because yes, there are certain groups of men coming together, but as a whole, let's be honest now. If we really want to wake it up, a lot of black men, right, myself included, a lot of us want masculine outcomes without masculine input, right? There's a lot of black men sitting back now that we have these spaces, right, pontificating about, for example, we talked about the tired conversations about relationships and about what black men are expecting from women without talking about the way that you have to stand up in order to naturally pull that femininity out of her, right? So we're hearing a lot of black men sitting back going, well, I want this and I deserve this. What do you deserve that for? And so a lot of our communities, so I'd agree with you, we're trying to carve ourselves out, but the truth is we're sitting back after coming off generations of not having raised our young people. Because as an educator, what I also have to acknowledge is, whilst I look at our young people and go, yo, these young people are out of pocket, the reality is because it's black men are not in communities raising them. So if the DOE reflects the black community, for example, the majority of the DOE is headed by black women. That's the black community. That's single motherhood. That means they're being raised by only women at home, coming to school, being raised by women, and then black men, yeah, admittedly, we can say black women doing the job is not perfect, but they the only ones doing it a lot of the times. So we sitting back talking about why I gotta have a masculine woman. What are you doing? Boy, what a most like? Let's be honest. What a most young. You feel me? For us to deserve that. So now the next step is how do we step into that? Because we know it's ways when niggas really get that femininity from a woman. Because you moving, you feel that.
You're right. I completely agree with all of that. And then even to the successful black men or the men that are upstanding and doing the job right, it's still an imbalance in the community if the woman is not. You're going to see a lot of men leaving relationships because they're realizing that they got into the relationship thinking that the woman would ride through with them. And when they if you already got it and you realizing other than sex, she's not bringing nothing to the table. She ain't got nothing to offer other than anything sexual. So once you realize, if you realize that the woman you was dealing with ain't got nothing but sex, and let's be real, if you're a high value man, you're gonna have options. So if you're now weighing your options and deciding, okay, I'm choosing a mate, I already got my ish together, I'm moving how I'm moving, and I'm looking for a selectable partner, the reality is the numbers are small. There's not enough men for the women, so it's already imbalanced. So when we talk about what are the black men doing, it's either you on the upside where you got options and you could do what you want to do, or you on the downside trying to hop from crib to crib or finessing or jugging or doing like, or you just, it's, you know, it's a lot. It's a lot, bro. And that's not even talking about what they did to us.
Well, his was true. I hear your point about women and how they ride and if they're gonna ride. But for me, I'd argue that a part of being a high quality, whatever you want to put on the term is your vetting process. There's, in my humble opinion, there's dogging women, and it's like, well, if that's all she had to offer, at what point is your vetting off? At what point did you lock in with a woman that had nothing else to offer you but sex? So a lot of the times people can't sit back and go, she's nothing, he's nothing. And that's why when people talk ill like someone they dealt with or they BM or they BD, I really think, I be like, really? Because that's a reflection of a choice you made at one point in your life. That's why I talk highly. Because so for me, I just think that be off, because it's like, men, if you are that dude and your vetting should be better. So yeah, I personally think black women are asking black men to become more emotionally intelligent. As black men become more emotionally intelligent, we realize the things that were being offered, actually, you wanted me to get. Now I realize how and why the things you do make me upset. Now we asking more of each other, and we keep pushing the boundaries. But at the same time, like I said, as a man, it's on you. If you was with a woman for years and then woke up one day and realized all she had to offer you was sex, that's your fault. What are you doing? And maybe you're not as elite as you think you are because you can't even identify true quality. So how are you really some elite nigga and you locked in with a thought or somebody that had no value outside of what she was giving it up for you? You actually, you see what I'm saying?
I see. So I see what you're saying. So a question I have to that now is, so how much does communication and healthy communication play a role? Because you talk about vetting process, and a lot of black men don't know how to communicate. So basically coming back to this vulnerability space, and you saying locking in with a woman, or if you don't know how to communicate, or if you found out she was a thot, or you found out her ways way after the fact, or you didn't even realize some ways you had. You was just like, yo, at this point, at this time, you know, I was just trying to get some box, my boy. I'm gonna keep it a stack. You know, I was effed up, I was down, I just lost the bag, and I just needed some box to hold me over. So, you know, whatever the circumstance was. So we could talk about the vetting process, and you could say, well, but even being able to say and come to another black man and say, yo, real talk, if we analyze, I just didn't come to this situation as my best self. I didn't show up as my best self at this time, and being able to say that to another man and him not being like, well, yo, that was your fault. Or, yo, you should have seen that, my nigga.
I respect that, but at the same time, when I'm thinking about the man who go, I just wanted some box, a lot of the times Men aren't getting effed up because they don't want a relationship. It's because they're not living in their authenticity. They lying to women, swindling, finessing, instead of developing themselves, working to get to a bigger bag, working out to become more attractive, figuring out how to get their hair cut. Instead of saying, I want some box, so I'm going to figure out how to become more appealing, niggas are finessing. So if you talk, so that's I'm not even mad at the nigga who from crib to crib rocking joints, because that's where he at. But if you own that, who could be mad at that? My only point is about, at this stage in my life, it's about people who are authentic and people who are not. So you absolutely right. I think a lot of the times people don't want to apologize or do things like that because they think people want them to bear their soul. No, people just want, or at least the reasonable is acknowledgement, and acknowledgement to move forward. To move forward. Because for some people, like I know I talk to a lot of fire signs, I know with us it's like, yo, you need acknowledgement because we communicated things of that nature the whole nine. So I think you're absolutely right. That space needs to exist. But once again, I'm going to start to wrap up by saying black men have all of the tools. We brought up a lot of issues in our community. We have all of the tools to address that. We have the ability to be there for our brother or our mans, for them to come to us and go, yo, bro, I'm not going to lie, son. I'm fucked up right now, and I'm bugging, son. I made a couple mistakes. Like, I'm wilding, like, you feel. So you right. We need those spaces. We need for your mans to tell you about some shit where you absolutely right. But we have the ability to do that. And just like everything else in our community, our literacy rate, because young black boys are reading at rates way lower than grade level. Like if you look at it throughout schools, young black boys cannot read in general and in aggregate. So just like everything else, it's gonna be up to us. Because the other people, let me say that, are never gonna help us. The other people never gonna do it for us. So black men have all the tools. We could be those supports. We could stop lying to women. And look, bro, if you don't want to be in a relationship, tell her that. You never know. She might be with it. Stop telling her you want her to have your baby. You just want a nut inside because it feel better. Be honest. You never know. She might get on birth control and let you rock. Stop lying, bro. We got to stand up and be honest about whatever you doing. That's it, bro. That's the start. And if you feel me?
Yeah. Yo, it's a lot going on, yeah. Nah, man, salute, man. We really got locked in on that one. But yo, man, this is what we here for. You know, to just open up these conversations, allow black men to just feel comfortable expressing themselves. That's what we up here doing, expressing ourselves, giving viewpoints. You know, we gonna really lock in and come back to this because healthy masculinity is an ongoing topic. It's ever changing. It's a nonstop battle. So we gonna get some more people up here, more insight. But yo, thank you again for rocking with us. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Any thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, drop them in the comments. Let us know what's up. You got any final thoughts, Kev?
Oh, nah, yeah. Like I said, man, or like you said, correction, ongoing conversation, healthy masculinity. Black men, we can do all of the things that we need right now. And for as long as we keep asking other people to do it, we never gonna get it done. So we just gotta start there, man. So I appreciate y'all.
That's real. And as we all know, it's a lot going on. Yo, salute, man.
Absolutely.